فلذلك فادع واستقم كما أمرت ولا تتبع أهواءهم وقل آمنت بما أنزل الله من كتاب.
الحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, today we'll pick up where we left off, and the book, which is Durrat al-bayan في usool al-imaan by Dr. Mohamed yousri. And this book is for those who are just coming in and starting up now. This book is a very good book for those who are wanting to get started in this subject of Tawheed. And the author, at the beginning of it, he talked a little bit about what is the subject of Tawheed, or Aqeedah as it's also called, or also Iman, because this is like the source of belief. And then after he talked about what is this subject in general, then he talked about some of the benefits of Islam and the Muslims. And then he talked about more specifically the benefits of al-Sunnah wal-jamaa'ah, and in regards to the people that are with them. And also he wanted to give a bit of an explanation about what are the attributes of these people that are of al-Sunnah wal-jamaa'ah. And of course, some of the things that we go across in this particular chapter, some of them are almost like it's going above and beyond what is necessarily like the obligatory portion, but these are some of the defining characteristics of al-Sunnah wal-jamaa'ah that he brings up here in this book. So when we left off from the last time, we talked about that they're different in regards to levels in their favor, and so not everyone is the same on a single level. And this is a basic principle when it comes to Islam, that not everybody is on the same level. Of course, everyone is they're all required in general similar things, and also some of this depends on their status and whatnot. But in general, the defining characteristic and thing that separates one person from another, and in regards to their level with Allah, is their taqwa. And this is like their piety and their following what Allah has told them and obeying Allah and His Messenger. This is the thing that puts them above other people or puts them down. And so this is very important that somebody understands that this isn't something that comes across just because one person is of one culture or a society, and another person from another society, or born into a certain family and whatnot, but rather the ultimate and differentiating factor is within their following of the guidance that Allah has given them, or from the people that don't follow that. And so this is important. And then we also talked about, and this goes into, they judge according to the Sharia, and they work together with establishing the religion. And this judging, this also comes into, I talked a bit about this comes into rulings and whatnot, but also this judging is more encompassing, such as when they see another person and when they love or they hate them or something. This is all should be based on the Sunnah, or it should be based on the Sharia and what comes in the Quran and the Sunnah. So if this person is someone who is following the Quran and following the Sunnah, they will judge according to that. And of course, we only judge according to the outward appearances, because none of us know the inner hearts of other people. This is something that Allah knows. And we work together in establishing the religion. And this is very important, that people help each other out with the establishing of the religion, and this is of the defining characteristics of al-Sunnah wal-jamaa'ah. And they prohibit others from taking crude leniency or going overboard. So they don't want someone to go so lax on the deen that they lose it, and at the same time they don't want somebody to go overboard and making everything super hard and taking away the strictest opinion, and of course forcing that onto everybody. And so of course there's a balance between these things. And then also recklessness or proceeding rashly, or impotence and weakness. These are all things that you'll find that al-Sunnah wal-jamaa'ah is in the middle of that, middle between the two extremes. And then where we left off last week, we talked a little bit about that they ask Allah for health and success, and they don't expose themselves to trials and tribulations. And when Allah's decree falls upon them in times of trial, they are the men that stand firm and keep others firm. And this is a very important point as well, because oftentimes people will see themselves as they think they want to be, but in reality they may be weaker than that. And someone should never have this idea that they are so strong in their faith that anything that hits them, they would never be shaken in it, but rather they ask Allah for them to give them success in their faith and in their deen and whatnot. And they never ask Allah for the trials and tribulations to come. And of course, when Allah knows that it's the right time for it to come, then this is something that's with Allah, and that Allah tries people, and this is something that is bound to happen. But we don't ask and go seeking for these trials and tribulations to come, even though yes, there is blessings in them, because this is something that could, if we ask for something of this sort, it could be a means of making things too hard on ourselves, and this is never something that we should be doing. We should never be making the religion too hard on ourselves or seeking for hardship. And the Prophet ﷺ, if he would not go out seeking for hardship, of course, if there was something that needed to be done and there's hardship in it, then he would do this thing. But he wouldn't go out of his way to seek something hard. And he would ask Allah for the al-afiyah, as I translated here as health and success. And people don't go out of their way, and someone shouldn't go out of the way to expose themselves to trials and tribulations, whether that's in like sinful matters, such as they think that they're strong enough to fight their temptations. If they have like certain temptations or struggles that they have within themselves, they shouldn't think themselves strong enough to go fight them by themselves in this case, because they're only putting themselves up to fall. And this is something that Allah tells us, وَلَا تَزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنِ اتَّقَى, that Allah tells us not to make ourselves out to be, don't think that you're righteous, or say that you're righteous, or say that you are a strong person in this way, but rather Allah knows who has the most taqwa, and who has taqwa. And so this is something, of course, we never want to put ourselves in a position where we make ourselves seen or make ourselves out to be someone who's super righteous and whatnot. Of course, we should always strive to be righteous and just always do what we can, but we should never like talk about ourselves as if we expect ourselves to be righteous. And this kind of, there's a difference between being righteous and claiming that you're righteous, because like claiming that you're righteous goes against that. But rather being it and calling to it is something that's always right. And of course, someone who calls to someone to be righteous, it's not a condition for someone to call to being righteous or to righteousness or to doing what's right and leaving what's sinful. It's not a condition for them to be super perfect in every single thing before they can call to it. This is not a condition of them, because of course, if anyone waited to call people to what is right and to prohibit people from what's wrong, there would be no one doing this matter, and this matter is something that's obligatory. So of course, we should always be calling to that, and it's best that we take our own advice when we're calling to that as well. We should always take we should always make sure that we are calling to the Sunnah and calling to what's right, as well as doing what we're calling to as well. If we're calling to what's right, and that we're not the ones who don't come with it as well. But that isn't something that we say. Some people, they have this idea that if you have any sin in your life, then you shouldn't call out the sin, or tell someone to leave the sin in their life. And this is a concept that is faulty and that is wrong. That goes against Islam, because yes, we call against the sin that is in our life, as well as we call other people to leave whatever sin that is there. And even if we sometimes fall into this or we're in it, and we call other people to do that, that doesn't go against it. And rather, we should also strive to take our own advice in this matter as well. And never think that the only way that someone can give advice to somebody is if they're already taking the advice in the best way. And this is not a condition, but rather this is something that this person should do. This person should do it, as well as this person should do it, but it doesn't stop someone from calling to what's good and prohibiting what's evil. And so the next thing that the author explains here is, he says that وَيَعْتَزِلُونَ الْمَعَاصِيَ وَلَا يُخَالِطُونَ النَّاسَ إِلَّا فِي خَيْرٍ. And he says, and they stay away from sins, and they don't mix with people except with what is good. And this is something that is a very good concept for people to understand, is when there are places of sin, whether it's places of sin or places that that are ready for someone to be exposed to sin, then this is something that a Muslim should not get themselves involved in this place, and they shouldn't get themselves involved in these things unless there's an absolute necessity for that. And so, of course, if there's a place where like sin is very like rampant and whatnot, or whether there's indecency in this place, this is something that a Muslim should stay away from. A Muslim should stay away from these places of sinful activities, and they shouldn't hang around within the people that are doing these sins. They should always do their best to stay away from people while they're sinning, and if they can call the person to do what's right and their voice is going to be heard, then this is one thing. But if they can't call the people to what is right, or their voice won't be heard whatsoever, then it's best for them not to go in this situation. And some of the examples, like there's so many examples that could come out of this, but some of the examples is, say there's a wedding and a wedding party, and the wedding party has music and dancing and mixing and free mixing, and there's whether there's like wine and alcohol, if it's not like a Muslim wedding, then this is something that this person, they shouldn't go to this place where all of this ma'asi, or like all of these sins are happening. They should stay away from this place unless they know that by their presence there they can stop it. If they know that by their presence there they can stop this thing from this evil by calling people and saying that they should fear Allah and they should stop this thing, then this is good. But if they can't stop this, stop the people from the sins that they're doing, and they're only going to be exposed to people sinning, this is something they should stay away from that. And also the author, he says, and they don't mix with people except with what is good. And this is also a general concept, and of course, like there's a balance with every type of thing. Like the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't call people to like go into seclusion or into isolation where they don't ever mix with the people. The Prophet ﷺ, he would mix with people, but when he mixed with people, there was always something good that was coming out of it, or there was a reason for it. It wasn't just to constantly hang out with people. And of course, for someone who wants to worship Allah and they have certain duties in their life, for them to always hang out with people with no purpose, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not good at all, they should make sure that they don't mix with people except with what is something that's beneficial. And because the time that someone spends, whether it's reading Quran, or whether it's studying the Deen, or whether it's doing things that they need to do for their family, or spending times with their family, this is something that is called for individuals. And sometimes people will go to extremes with going out and mixing with people and hanging out with no purpose, and they just waste time with things that don't benefit them in this dunya, or maybe they benefit them in this dunya, but they definitely don't benefit them in the akhirah. And so this is something that someone should look at that and have this balance. And the Prophet ﷺ, such as like after Isha, he used to not speak. He used to not speak with he used to not sit with people after Isha except with his family, and he disliked speaking after Isha. And of course, this is the time like after Isha that the scholars have talked about that it's best for somebody not to talk about things, and not to sometimes people after Isha, just the whole night they spend up talking, hanging out, chilling, and whatnot. And this is something, especially if somebody has a family, the rights of like the spouse, of like the wife and the children and the family, these come above like the hanging out with friends and whatnot, and the excessive hanging out outside of the house and whatnot. And so this is something that it's the right of the wife after Isha, and at this time that her husband is with her in this case, or that with the kids and whatnot. This is something that they have a need for. And the Prophet ﷺ, he used to not like to talk to other people or have these things unless it was something that was beneficial after Isha. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ, he would also get up and pray. So if he were to stay up late talking with talking with people and just chatting and whatnot, and chatting through the night, then this would keep him from his night prayer. And this is the something we'll talk about in a little bit. But this is something that's very important. And the person who has this regimen of praying at night, then this is something that he will protect this. And one of the ways that he protects this is not by staying up late at night talking with friends about things that don't have a lot of benefit. Of course, if it's something that's good, if it's something that is helping someone with their religion, helping with their deen, and helping them learn, or it's something that is necessary and like building strong relationships in a good way, then this is something that scholars have said that it's not disliked to speak after Isha with something that is good, like something that is good, so whether it's learning like the Quran, the Sunnah, from like seeking knowledge, or whether it's like having ties of kinship, such as like with your family and whatnot. Then this is good. But of course, like always making sure that someone reviews themselves, and why am I mixing with these people, and why am I talking with these people? Because with when somebody speaks a lot, they're more prone to mistakes, and if they get the wrong people, and they're more prone to having being influenced by these people that normally they wouldn't be influenced if they were away from them. And this is something that we can see, and especially with new Muslims, a lot of times we have people that have they come into Islam, and like me, when I came into Islam, I had people that were around me that weren't Muslims at the beginning, and this was something that had a negative effect on me. And once I was able to find a place and find the community of Muslims that I could be around and have this was something that helped me so much in my religion, because the people ultimately that aren't Muslims, they're always going to be calling to what they're upon. So they're always going to be calling to misguidance and calling people to leave the Quran, the Sunnah, even if they claim that they're not calling to this is something that is at the basis and the root of what they believe. And so it's hard to take that away from what they truly are and whatnot. And so it's important for someone to make sure when they mix with people that it's something that they have a purpose for it, and something that's good. And then the next thing that the author here, he says, is وَسَرِيرَتُهُمْ نَقِيَّةٌ وَلَا يَقُولُونَ بِالتَّقِيَّةِ يُدَارُونَ النَّاسِ وَلَا يُدَاهِنُونَهُمْ. And so he says here that their secret life is pure. And something, so when it comes to their secrets, whether it's the secrets that are things that they do, or what they believe, or what the secrets are of their heart, this is something that is pure, and it's not something that they're putting up a facade for what their life is. And of course, and this is an issue also, that someone should not go to the other extreme in it, as well as like we look at ourselves, and we should always be reviewing our own heart and reviewing our own actions of the heart with Allah. So we should always be reviewing, am I fearing Allah as I should? And as that Allah is worthy to be feared, and am I worshiping Allah with sincerity, and all of these things. This is something that should be there, and they shouldn't have this. They shouldn't have riyat, which is like showing off, or hypocrisy, or hate for others in their heart, or what's inside of them. And they also shouldn't be doing things like shady, or something that is against the Sharia, outside of what people know. And of course, this is not to say if somebody is falling into these things that they should make it public, because this is also another sin, and this is actually makes the sin worse than if somebody falls into something, because the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned in the Hadith that Allah covers all of the sins of Bani Adam, of the people of the sons of Adam, except the people that make it apparent. And so that this person would go and would make a mistake at night, and Allah would have covered him for this mistake that he made. And so it'd be something that's between him and Allah covered him from the people in this. And then the next day, he says, I did this and I did that. And so this person just took the covering of Allah away from him, or as the Prophet ﷺ said. So this is this hadith that the Prophet ﷺ says. It's very important that someone realizes, yes, the things that they do, that only them and Allah know of the mistake that they made, they should always go back to Allah in repentance in this thing. But they should also not ever take this thing that they did and say, oh, I did this and I did this. And this is something that that happens on like Twitter and Facebook and on social media, that people will post their sins online. And this is worse than just doing the sin itself, because one, you're making the sin public, and you're also calling other people to it, whether or not you're saying that maybe you're saying that it's a sin or not, or maybe you're not like in this sense. But if you are saying that I did such and such, then you're making this something that is normalized within the sight of people, and this shows that this person is taking away what Allah has given him from a covering from his sins. And so this person should never make his sins public in this sense, because this is putting a sin on top of another sin, a problem on top of a problem, making it even worse. And so he says here, their secret life is pure, and they don't speak with taqiyya. And here they don't speak with taqiyya, which is lies to affect how others view them. This word taqiyya is something that the Shia have been known for doing, and they have this as a core root of their belief, that they think that it's permissible for them to lie if it has a benefit for their agenda. So so when they have their agenda and whatnot of spreading their false understanding of Islam, they will lie to they will lie to the Sunnis, and they will lie to them and say, oh, we don't believe this, or we believe this, or oh, this is what we really believe, and they're lying to them, and this is a part of their deen, or like the way that they see in their religion, that it's permissible for them to lie in regards to deen, and so that they can like protect themselves from the backlash of them being exposed. And this is something that as Muslims, we don't lie about our religion. And when it comes to what Allah has said and what Allah has commanded, we don't need to lie about this, because we know that ultimately Allah has made the religion perfectly. And this religion is complete in every single way. And if some people like it or some people don't like it, then this is something that is for them, and Allah will judge them on this. But we don't say something about the religion that is a lie about the religion just so that we can get across our agenda, or make the Islam to seem to be nice and friendly to the disbelievers and whatnot. And this is some things that some of the like the liberalist mindset and these things have taken people to say things about Islam that are incorrect about Islam. And the reason they say this, or like the reason they say this, is to protect themselves. Of course, there are some things, if you don't say something about Islam to in a protective manner, and say if you said in a certain situation, and that of course, like you come off with like the penalty associated with someone who commits like sodomy or something of this. Of course, saying this in every single situation in like the West and whatnot, this could possibly get you into like a tight spot with the people. But but at the same time, we don't say that this is something that's not a sin, or we don't lie about the religion in this sense, but rather we speak with wisdom, and when we speak about the religion, we speak with what's true, and we don't lie about this ever. And this is something that the Shia, they make this like this taqiyya. They call it taqiyya, which means to protect oneself, and they mean by protecting oneself with lying. And this is something that that is not a part of the deen. And the Prophet ﷺ, if he ever did say something, it would always be true in some sense. And there was a time when the Prophet ﷺ, he was traveling, making hijrah from Mecca, when the people of Mecca were trying to kill him, and they had plotted to kill him, and they wanted to kill him, and then he made hijrah, which is a migration, to Medina with Abu Bakr. And so when they went out on this, there were things that they did that were, of course, because this is they're running for their life, and if they would have shown people who they were and what they were doing, then they could have been taken and killed on the road. So there was a person that came to the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr, and asked them. And they asked him, who's this with you? And someone asked Abu Bakr, who's this with you? And he said, my guide. He didn't say the Prophet ﷺ, but rather he said, he's my guide. And so when he said he's my guide, the person understood, okay, he means this is his guide on the road. But what he meant, of course, is like his guide in every single aspect of life, the Prophet, ﷺ. But he didn't say this right out up in front. And so this was something that, yes, he said something, it was true in one sense, and the other person understood it in another sense. And this is something that's called tawriyah. And to protect himself, this is something that is okay. And also the Prophet ﷺ was asked, where are you from? And he said, and then he said, min al-ma'. He said he is from Ma'. And this was something that the person understood as something, as an actual like place or like a people. The way the Prophet ﷺ, he understood it as this is like a tribe. He's saying that he's from this tribe or something, or from this place. But the Prophet ﷺ, he meant that all of the living things, all of the living creatures of the earth are from, like they're from water, and so like this is ma' means water, and so he meant that I'm from water, but rather this person understood it in another way, and so this is something that the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't lie, but rather he said something that was true, and the other person understood it in a way that protected the Prophet ﷺ from speaking what this person really wanted to hear. And so there's this way of which is called tawriyah, which is useful in times of of course of war, or if someone fears for themselves and whatnot. But someone should never make this something that is overused in their life, such as speaking with because tawriyah is not necessarily lying, but rather it's saying something that is true in one sense, and meaning something, and it is understood in a sense that is not necessarily the intended meaning of the person who's looking for that answer. And so using this to protect oneself in situations like this, then there's no problem with it. But this person should not use it unless it's absolutely necessary, and shouldn't go overboard with this kind of like misleading answers. Like no one should ever go overboard, and this is something you'll only see the Prophet ﷺ use this in times of whether it's necessity or need, whether it's like from physical harm or in the times of battle or war. Then this is something that is, of course, deception is a major part of something that happens in warfare strategy. And so this is something that's permissible. But in general, we don't speak with what is false, especially about the deen. Like we never say something about the religion or what we believe with something that is false. And the next thing that the author who says, and they speak kindly with people without going overboard with the excessive flattering. And so this is something that Allah gave. He told the people that came before, the people of the Jews. He said, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا, and to say or speak with the people with what is good. And this is something that, of course, this is something that is prescribed for us, is that we speak with the people and we speak with what is good, and we don't speak with foul language or foul speech. And we speak kindly with these people, and we never want to be rough and gruff with our fellow Muslims or with other non-Muslims, but rather we speak kindly with these people, but we don't go to the extreme of excessive flattering. So when we speak with somebody and we see that someone did something good, yes, we can praise them for what they did, and we can say these things, but this is not something that we would go out and go overboard with saying how wonderful this person is and how much they have and done, and going and praising this person too much, because ultimately all of us we're subject to mistakes, and even if a certain person, they have done good things and they have the right for them to be praised in certain matters, if we go overboard in praising them, this could be a cause for their niyyah and what they're doing to be put at risk, and maybe they will fall into thinking that they themselves are something amazing and wonderful because of the praise that they've given them. And this is something the Prophet ﷺ, he warned people against praising their brothers too much in such a way that they're breaking their back. And so, of course, someone that is working to have ikhlas with Allah, this sincerity, and with this, they're not looking for someone to praise them in all of these matters. And if somebody goes overboard in praising them in these things, then this could be a cause for their own destruction, because because what they're fighting with their niyyah and making sure that their intention is pure for Allah, this thing could be put at risk when somebody excessively flatters them and says, "Oh, this is a sheikh," and they say that this is a sheikh, and this is this scholar of this, that, and the other, and they go and keep praising him and whatnot. This is something that some of the scholars, when they are deserving of the introduction that they're given. The scholar Ibn Uthaymeen, he was explained once as, or introduced to the people as a sheikh, al-allama, and then they started praising him with his accomplishments and whatnot. And this was something he said, stop. And he's like, this is not appropriate. And he's like, I'm a servant of Allah, and this is good enough. And he didn't want this person to go over and overpraise him. And this is something we'll see with a lot of the people, because we don't do this for the praise of people. We do this we worship Allah for Allah's pleasure, and we want Allah to be pleased with us. And if our own niyyah or our own intention is going to be put at risk because of the praise of somebody, then this is something that should be avoided. But at the same time, we also don't speak roughly with people. So there's a balance here that someone should go, and we don't go to over extremes with flattering people and whatnot, or especially not speaking or speaking with what isn't true, and going overboard in that sense, where we don't speak with where we over embellish with some people and their accomplishments and whatnot, so that we can get something, or for some of these things, rather we speak with what is right and what is proper and what is appropriate in the situation. And then the next thing that he says here is وَيَصِلُونَ مَنْ قَطَعَهُمْ وَيُعْطُونَ مَنْ مَنَعَهُمْ وَيَعْفُونَ عَمَّنْ ظَلَمَهُمْ. And which means they connect the ties of kinship with those who cut them off, and they give to those who hold back from them, and they forgive those who oppress them. And so this is important, that one of the major aspects of the religion is that it's called silatul rahim, which is the ties of kinship. This is something that holds a huge place in Islam. And and in a hadith that comes from the Prophet ﷺ, that Allah asked the earth, and asked what would be or he asked the punishment for someone who cuts off the silatul rahim. And he asked the earth, what is the punishment of that? And the silatul rahim, and promised the person who cuts off the silatul rahim, which is that connection between the ties of kinship, that this person would be cut off, and they would have their risk and their provision and whatnot would be something that's cut off. And so this is something also that we see in many aspects of the Sharia. So especially when it comes to our immediate family, and of course the most important person that we should always keep the ties of kinship with is our mother. And so the Prophet ﷺ was asked about who is the most. One of the Sahabis asked the Prophet, who is the most worthy of my good fellowship, or my good company? And the Prophet ﷺ answered, your mother. And then he said, then who? He said, your mother. He said, then who? He said, your mother. And then he said, then who? And then he's like, your father. And then whoever, then the next close of kin. And so this is something that, of course, the mother holds that high status in Islam. And this is something, of course, that she carried us when, our mothers, they carried us in pregnancy and in childbirth, and then they cared for us when we were young. So of course this is a right that is totally obligatory for them, from us, to always make sure that we give them their right, and that we're always good to our parents, especially our mother, and make sure that we never cut them off, or that we never say anything that displeases them, if we can help it, of course. and this is something that holds a very, very high status. And also, in regards to the ties of kinship, this also goes to like the father, of course, which is the next rank under like the mother, and then of course like the immediate family, and then the extended family, and of course whoever's the closest, they hold a higher a higher responsibility for us to connect with them and whatnot. And the Prophet ﷺ was also asked about someone who connects this ties of kinship, and he's good to these people and they're bad to him. And he said, should I leave them and should I cut off these people that basically cut me off with their goodness? And the Prophet ﷺ told him no, to keep these ties with them, and this will be like heaping coals of fire on their head. You know, when you keep these ties of kinship, even if when they want to cut you off and they want to say all the bad things that they want to say to you, but rather you still are good to them, this is something that is still important, and this is still their right, whether or not they reciprocate. This is still their right, and it's something that we should do in this situation. And so, and this is especially like, of course, we should always connect the ties of those who don't cut us off. But with those who do cut us off, then we need to do our best to make things right with them. And if there is something that has been, like if there's been some type of oppression from us, then we make sure that we fix that oppression, and we do whatever we can to make sure that we bring them into the right standing. And we always make sure this connecting of the ties of kinship can go into giving gifts. And making sure that these people they don't feel left out, and they also that they don't feel that no one is taking care of them. And this can also go in, if they're poor, then we make sure that we give them from what we can, and that we provide for them in what they can, and give them from the good of what Allah has given us. And of course, like the mother and the father, this is something that and it's something that's happened in America. As many people, they leave their parents to like in their old age. They don't live with them, and they don't take them in, and they don't take care of them. And this has become the culture in America, that people, when they get old, then we leave the mother and the father to a nursing home or to like a assisted living care place. Of course, if someone needs specific care for like a situation, this is something that of course should be taken care of. But to be left alone, which a lot of these people that are in the nursing homes, their family is outside doing whatever they're doing, living their life, getting driving their fancy cars, going about to their job, and then they just pay for their mom and dad to be in a nursing home, and they see them once or twice in the year, or maybe once in a month if they're a really good person. You know, and this is something that is completely contrary to that connecting the ties of kinship. And of course, like people in an Islamic culture that are born and raised in Islamic culture, they look at this as if this is madness. They can't even they can't imagine that someone would leave their mother and father out to a nursing home. You know, like this is unimaginable. Like this person raised you, and they took care of you when you were little. It's their right for them to be taken care of when they're old. And so, of course, this is from the ties of kinship. And it's something that in America has become normal for people to leave their mothers and fathers in these nursing homes or assisted care facilities, or these elderly homes, or these places. And of course, they only get seen maybe once or twice a year by their kids. And this is very, very sad. And of course, they want to have a relationship with their kids, and it's best for them to be brought back into the house and whatnot, or be brought close to the family, or into a house that's close to the family, whatever is suitable for them, of course, and what is befitting. But this is something that, of course, we should always do the best we can to have that. Good living with our parents, especially in their old age. And this is something that is very, very emphasized in the Sharia. And and the amount of hadiths that go along this are, and there's many of the hadiths. One of the hadiths is that the Prophet ﷺ, he was climbing up onto the minbar, and when he was stepping on the steps, he said Ameen. And then he took another step and said Ameen. And they took another step and said Ameen. And then the Sahaba, they asked him, what were you saying Ameen about? And then he said, Jibreel, he came to me and he said Ragima Anfa Aman. And he said that, like, may this person be destroyed, or it's like a prayer against this person. that when he comes into Ramadan, his sins are not forgiven. And one of the other amins was when one of his parents reaches old age, and he didn't serve them. And so this was something that he said amin to the prayer that is against this person that reaches one of his parents reach old age, and this person wasn't good to them or didn't take care of them and didn't take the necessary steps to take care of them and to give them their rights in this. And this is something that is the right of the parents. And then the next thing that he mentions here is they also give to those who hold back from them. And this is a trait that the Prophet ﷺ, he did, and he was excessive in the amount of charity that he would give and to the people that he would give, even if these people were seemingly undeserving, for the amount that he would give. But he would give to soften the people that were new Muslims. He would give to them of gifts and what he had, so that it would open their heart to see the beauty of Islam, and then it would strengthen them in Islam. And this is something that even when these people, they had the chance, they wouldn't give to him, but he would give to them in this situation when he saw that there was that beautiful need from it. And the Prophet ﷺ, also, he would never want to stay, like, if he had money that he hadn't given out to people that were in need around him, then he would go out and give that to them. And also the Prophet ﷺ, he would never say no to anybody who came to him. This was something that he never said no when he was asked for something. He would always do whatever he could to get something for this person who asked him. And even if it was from the clothes on his back, or it was if he didn't have what this person needed, then he would ask the people around him to help out this person with this, but he would never say no. And this is from the generosity of the Prophet ﷺ, that is very, very beautiful. And also the next thing he says, and they forgive those who oppress them. And this is something that is a good characteristic, and this is something that Allah gives us in the Quran in many places, and that Allah, He says, وَمَنْ صَبَرَ وَأَصْفَحَ فَمَنْ غَفَرَ the meaning of it, which is that Allah, the person who forgives someone else when they have been oppressed, فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ, then his reward is with Allah for this person. If he has the right and he gave up his right and forgave this person for something that this person took against him, then his reward is something that Allah will give him for doing this. And this is something that is a very, very good trait, and that the Prophet ﷺ, when he conquered Mecca, when he went back to Mecca, Mecca was from the people that were there. They took him from his land, and they took his land from him, and took his properties, and took the other believers. These people took the other believers' land and property and all these things, and forced them away from that just because they were worshiping Allah. And from this, when the Prophet ﷺ came back, he forgave these people. And of course, in general, he forgave all the people that he came through, and gave them a chance, of course, coming into Islam, and then that gets rid of all of the previous things from before. And this is something that shows the generosity of the Prophet ﷺ, even though these people were very oppressive before. When he was given the opportunity to get revenge, this was something that he chose not to have that revenge on them, but rather to forgive. And this forgiveness is something that is very beautiful, and also Allah is forgiving, and Allah loves those who forgive. And so this is a characteristic that should be a part of our lives, that we forgive the people that oppress us. And this doesn't mean that we overlook oppression and people that oppress other people, that we forgive the people that oppress someone else, of course, and we don't help this person get their rights. No, that's not the meaning of it. But rather, if we have been taken advantage of, and then we're put in a situation to get that revenge from them, or to take even what's like what we deserve, or even just to give as we were given, to reciprocate. Yes, it's permissible to give as you were given if it's something that this is something that is permissible. That if somebody is oppressed in one way, for them to take back their thing with force, or to respond in retaliation like the oppression that came to them. This is something that's permissible, but of course it's better for them to forgive. And this forgiveness is not necessarily this is not a sign of weakness. Of course, Of course, if somebody can't do anything except for forgive because they have no power in the situation, there's a difference between someone who has to forgive and somebody who chooses from a state of power that they forgive. And this is the thing, of course, that has more of the reward, is the person who's in a state of authority and then he chooses to forgive. Of course, this holds much more weight than the person who forgives because he can't do anything else. Like he doesn't have the opportunity to take his right. And of course, Allah will make sure that all the rights are given back on the Day of Judgment. But if somebody forgives, then in this case, this is something that could be the cause of Allah forgiving them for their sins when they forgive other people for the oppression that they've done upon them. And also, it's very good for a Muslim never to sleep, when not to go to bed with hate and resentment in his heart for his other brothers and whatnot. So to always try to make things right and to make sure that he forgives others as he can, and he doesn't hold things against other people. Of course, looking at this in a proper way, of course, because sometimes if somebody's oppressing somebody else, this oppression needs to be stopped, and so that's something. But of course, if you're the only one that is in the situation, you can take your revenge, or you can leave it and you can choose to forgive. Then this is always better. And then the next thing that he brings here is that he says, وَيَأْخُذُونَ الْعَفْوَ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْعُرْفِ وَيُعْرِضُونَ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. And so then he says they take it easy on the people, وَيَأْخُذُونَ الْعَفْوَ, and I'll talk a little bit about this, and they command what's right and turn away from the ignorant. And so this is something that is of the other good traits from the people of al-Sunnah, is that they don't go super hard on other people, and they also, when they take from other people, they don't take what is hard, what makes things hard on other people, but rather they take what is easy from other people. خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. This is what Allah says in the Quran, as He says, Allah is commanding the Prophet ﷺ, خُذِ الْعَفْوَ, and this has multiple meanings. One of the meanings is that it takes what is easy from people and never takes what is going to be hard from the people. And also another of the meanings is that he takes from the good that is found in people, such as like from when somebody sees something that is from good akhlaq, or they see something that is a good characteristic or something, they take from this, and they take from what this comes. And this word afu has different words depending on, or it has different meanings depending on the context. So sometimes the word afu, it means like forgiving, or like something that is easy, and also it could mean like something that is easy when someone is giving something, they give from what is easy for them to give, and this is another meaning of this word afu. And so like making sure that they take it easy and they don't make things hard on people. And of course the Prophet ﷺ, he said that you were sent as people to make it easy and not as people to make it hard. And so this is something that is important for us to always try to make it easy for people and not try to make things hard and difficult on other people, and also to take what is easy from other people and never take too much from someone that's going to make it difficult. If you know that someone maybe they're very generous, and if you ask for it, they'll give it to you, even if it hurts them. Then you only take what's easy from them. And in this case, if they're giving, and you don't take everything from this person when it's going to be hard for them. And then also commanding what is right, and also turning away from people that are ignorant. And like the people that are ignorant, this is like there's two different types of jahl, or like which is ignorance. There's a type of jahl which this person doesn't know. And because he doesn't know, then he'll make mistakes, and it's just he doesn't know what is something that should be known. And then there's another type of jahl, which is or like ignorance, which this person is ignoring. He's purposefully ignoring. And this is the type of person, when somebody you command them you tell them what is right, and this person doesn't want to hear it, and they don't want to hear whether it's about Islam, whether if they're non-Muslim and they don't want to hear anything about Islam, and they only have they just want to speak nonsense and whatnot. Then this is somebody that it shouldn't take your time, and don't stay and persist with this person trying to fix them. You gave them the message. This is all that you need to do, and don't waste your time spending with these people. And so turn away from the people that are of this type. Of course, for the person who doesn't know, and you can teach him. But if he turns out to be one of the people that is willfully ignorant, then this is someone that you shouldn't spend your time and like work and put your effort into somebody that isn't interested in hearing the truth and in general. And this is something to turn away from them and not spend your time with them. And this comes from the ayah and that I mentioned before, that Allah says, خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. And so to take the afu and to command with what is known, or al-urf, which is al-ma'ruf, which is something which is anything that's good from the Sharia, and a'rid ani al-jahilin, which means to turn away from the people that willfully ignorant person. And then the next thing that he says here is that وَيَصْبِرُونَ وَيَحْلُمُونَ عَلَى رَبِّهِمْ وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. And he says that they are patient and they are long-suffering, and upon their Lord they trust. And this is also some of the beautiful characteristics that we should have, is patience. And something that if the only thing that you got from like the reward of patience, that Allah says, Inna Allah ma'as sabirin, that Allah is with the people that are patient, then this would be enough. You know, when we are patient, we can know that Allah is going to help us in this patience when it's in the time of hardship, whether it's dealing with people that are difficult people, or dealing with family members that have reached the end of our patience, whether it's like a kid or something of that sort, or even spouses, or with the family that's around us. That patience, when we have that patience and we are in this state of where we need to have patience, then this is something we know that Allah will give us a reward for that when we look for that reward, and Allah is with us. He's helping us in that situation, and He gives us a special helping from Him, and He is intimately acquainted with everything that's going on with us, and that He will help us in our situation when we are patient. And also وَيَحْلُمُونَ and hulm, and so like this type of hulm, which is a type of long suffering, which is when somebody have the ability to, like, whether it's to take advantage or like to take revenge or something, but rather they're long suffering, and they hold this, and they hold their composure in times of like distress, or in times of perturbance. They hold their composure in this situation. This is something that is asked for from these people, and this is something that is also of the traits of the Anbiya and of Ibrahim. He was known as Halim, which is someone who is that is very long suffering, and that has lots of patience in these things. And then he says, and upon their Lord they trust. And this is very important, that and Allah connects this trust with it says that Allah loves the people. Inna Allah yuhibbul mutawakkilin. That Allah, He loves the people who are mutawakkil, which means to put their trust in Allah. And of course, this tawakkul, it comes after you have done what is required of you. And like, of course, you don't say, I put my trust in Allah, and you forget all of the. You don't say, I put my trust that Allah is going to protect my stuff, so I leave my doors unlocked, and I know that there's like people around me that could break in, and I just trust in Allah. No, that's not trusting in Allah. That's being stupid. But rather, we do what is required of us, and then once we've done what is required of us in like the means of like the earthly and like the normal things that are requirements that we would need to do, we do these first, and then after that, we know that the rest is up to Allah, and we trust in Allah. And this is something that, of course, like this is something Allah has connected. He has connected His love for individuals based on this. And also, if you look in like Ali Imran, that Allah, He says that Inna Allah yuhibbul mutawakkilin. And so this is something that, of course, like if you want Allah's love, then you should have patience, and you should trust. You should trust in Allah. And this is of the most beautiful things that someone can have. When they trust in Allah, the rest of their life will hold a sense of peace and serenity that they wouldn't have if they weren't trusting in Allah. And of course, this is of the most beautiful things of Islam. When we learn about Allah, and we learn about His attributes, and we learn about His names, and we read the Quran, and we read what Allah loves, and we apply this, and we will see that when we trust in Allah, then the different matters that used to bring turmoil in ourselves and in our psyche and whatnot, these things, they come to rest when we trust in Allah, and that we have that patience. And so these are very important characteristics. And with the last, we'll take this last one here, and then we'll call it for today. And then he says here, بِمَحَبَّةِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى يَشْتَهِرُونَ وَمِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ يُشْفِقُونَ وَبِقِلَّةِ الضَّحِكِ وَالْفَرَحِ بِالدُّنْيَا يُمَيِّزُونَ. And so he says, with their love for Allah, they are known, and with humility of Allah, they are compassionate, and they are separated from the rest with a small amount of laughing and happiness with this earthly life. And so this is something, when somebody is known, or they become famous or something of this sort, this is something that can many times be a fitna or a trial on this person when they're famous, and especially if somebody is when fame hits them, then it's very hard for them to go back from this situation. So many of the Salaf and the people like the righteous predecessors, they would talk about the beauty of someone not being famous, because in this sense they have a peace, and they they have a freedom that they don't have to worry about, as opposed to someone who is famous. And so here he says, the author, he says, with their love for Allah, they are known. And so he puts first, with their love for Allah, they are known. And so first and foremost, this person, if they ever become famous, then this is something that they should always, first and foremost, have Allah, and their love for Allah should be the first and most important thing for this person. They should never be looking for fame as like a goal in and of itself, but rather, if they do get famous, and this is a cause for them to call many people to good, then this is good. But if they're looking for fame's sake, and it's not because of their love for Allah that results later, and that Allah gives them this fame, then this is something that can be a great fitna for them. So they need to make sure that first and foremost, in all of us, we need to make sure that first and foremost, our love for Allah is the thing that is the most important thing for us. And then with that, then if they become known because of the good things that they've done and the contributions they've made to Islam and to society, then this is something that is good, and it won't affect them if their love for Allah is something that was always put first and foremost in all of these things. And also with the next thing he says, and with humility of Allah, they're compassionate. And this goes also hand in hand with that, and that someone should always have this khashya, which is humility and like humbleness when it comes to Allah, and when it comes to their salah, they're always thinking about Allah, and they're thinking about that Allah is the Maliki Yawmiddin, or Maliki Yawmiddin, that He is the owner and the king of the day of judgment. And this is something that we're going to stand before Allah one of these on that day, and that this is something that we should always have this in our mind when we're doing any of our actions, and this is something that will result in us being compassionate with other people. And this is of the best things that we can do, is be compassionate with other people. And the Prophet ﷺ is spoken about in the Quran as Azizun alayhi ma anittum, that it is hard upon him the hardships that you have faced. Like the hardships that the Ummah faces, something that is difficult on the Prophet ﷺ. And then bil mu'minina ra'ufun rahim, and that with the believers, he is very ra'uf and rahim. And ra'uf is something that is like compassionate, and rahim is also very, very merciful. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ, he was sent as rahmah, or as mercy to the worlds. And so this is something that when we follow in his footsteps, we should be of the most compassionate people. And we should have this compassionate for other people. We should also have this compassionate for the other animals that are around us. And we know that all the animals, they make tasbih, and they praise Allah, and they worship Allah in a way that we don't know, but we know that Allah has told us that they do this. So we're always compassionate on the other people around us, of course, and the people that have rights upon us, and also around the animals that are around us and the habitat around us. And this is something that we should always have this compassionate spirit about us, and we should always act with compassion. And also this connects with our humility of Allah, and we don't have this like takabbur, or something that is this pride that puts us above other people and above things, but rather we're remembering Allah, and remembering that we will stand in front of Allah on the Day of Judgment. And so then we should be compassionate with those around us, looking for that reward, and that Allah would be compassionate with us on that day. And may Allah make it easy for us on that day. And then he also says, and they are separated from the rest with a small amount of laughing and happiness with this earthly life. And so this is also another way that they are differentiated from the rest, and is that they aren't given to excessive laughing or going overboard with frivolous, they're always happy about the things of this world. And this is something that, of course, someone shouldn't be. The Prophet ﷺ was not someone who was frowning in his life a lot, but rather he was known to always be smiling, and this is something that is very good. But when it comes to laughing, like with noise, this is something the Prophet ﷺ wasn't necessarily someone who laughed with noise, like the bellowing laughter and whatnot, where someone would raise their voice with laughter and whatnot. But rather, when there are things that are funny, yes, there are things that are funny, but he wasn't given to this, where this is like his sole purpose in life. And one of the things that the Salaf used to say is, if somebody they do a lot of it, من أكثر بشيء يعرف به. And so like whoever is like they increase themselves in a certain thing, then they will be known by this thing. And so if somebody is always given to excessive laughing and whatnot, and like the happiness with the things of this dunya and whatnot, then this will be the characteristic that someone thinks about this person. They're like, this guy's a joker. And this is not something that, like, someone being a joker or being a comedian or a funny guy and whatnot, this is not something that is necessarily, it doesn't hold a high position when it comes to respect. And this doesn't necessarily mean that this person is respectable, that this guy's always joking and there's never a time when he's serious and whatnot. But rather, there's a time for joking, and there's times when the Prophet ﷺ, he said things that were funny, that were very funny, and he had a sense of humor and whatnot. Of course, with the time, when the time calls for it. But in like, to give just a couple examples, there's one hadith the Prophet ﷺ was talking to a woman, an elderly woman, and then he said, don't you know? He was talking to to an elderly woman. He said, don't you know that there's no old women in Jannah? And so then she started to cry. And then he explained what he meant. It was like don't you know that every single person, when they're entered into Jannah, they'll be brought to a young age, and they'll have like the beauty of a young person. And then that was really what he meant. And this was from his sense of humor. And there's also other times when he would have this sense of humor. And of course, his sense of humor was always in a way that was never lying. And like some people, they joke, and when they joke, they are lying when they're joking. This is a sense of humor that is not good. But rather, the Prophet ﷺ, if he had, when he would bring out something that was humorous in this way, it would be something that was true. But yes, of course, like it's something that held a sense of relief for this person. That to know that, okay, this old woman, she won't enter into Jannah in her old body and whatnot, but rather this is something that every single person, when they enter into Jannah, they'll have a body of a young person. And this is of the ni'mah, or like the blessings that Allah gives. And also of the other side, the Prophet ﷺ, he was also he said, if you knew what I knew, and you saw what I have seen, like referring to like the dreams and the revelation that the Prophet ﷺ gave, he said, you would laugh a lot less, and you would cry a lot more. And this is due to the reality of the situation. If we saw the torment that happens to the people in their graves, and we knew the reality of the day of judgment, and we really understood this would be something that would result in a lack of us wanting to always joke and be lighthearted about everything in this dunya, but rather it would bring us to a sense of somber reality of that this is a test in this life, and this is something we're looking to meet Allah, and we want Allah to be pleased with us, and this is the most important thing to us. And so this is, inshallah, we'll call it here. And of course, this is never to be. We're not called to be someone who's always serious and never having fun or never having a fun time. This is not the meaning here. But the reality of the situation is this: that the greatest fun that we're going to have is in the afterlife. And if we're doing anything in this life that jeopardizes the afterlife, then this is ultimately not the greatest fun. Like, if you want the greatest fun, this is something that in the afterlife it will be there for you. And that Allah will always, if you leave something for Allah in this life, then Allah will give it back to you in something that's better, whether it's in this life or the afterlife. والله تعالى أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
فلذلك فادع واستقم كما أمرت ولا تتبع أهواءهم وقل آمنت بما أنزل الله من كتاب وأمرت لأعدل بينكم الله ربنا وربكم لنا بيننا وبينكم الله يجمع بيننا وإليه المصير.